Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Frontenac County Council meeting of Wednesday, June the 18th. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. We don't have a closed session, don't have to worry about any addendum. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Deputy Warden Saunders, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 21st, 2025 be adopted.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. No delegations, no presentations. Proclamations, National Indigenous Peoples Day.
Through you, Warden Lichty, I will just read the resolve clause. So moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Smith. Therefore be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac hereby proclaims June 21st, 2025 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in Frontenac County.
Committee of the Whole? Oh, sorry. Are there any comments on that? In favor? Carried. My apologies. Move into the Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Vandewaal, seconded by Councillor Fowler, that Council adjourn and meet as Committee of the Whole Council with the Deputy Warden in the chair.
Any comments? In favor? Carried.
Good morning, Council and staff. The first item on our agenda for Committee of the Whole is a briefing by our CEO, Mr. Kevin Farrell. So good morning, Warden, Deputy Warden, and Council. I'll take you through the CIO update for June 2025. And as always, I'll touch on the main points and happy to answer any questions. So first off, to highlight a few items from my June schedule. On June 3rd, I joined Warden Lichty and Mayor Vandewaal, along with Justin Bromberg from the FMSC and John Levy from Clearford, to meet with Minister McCarthy and Minister Flack regarding streamlining approval processes as it relates to communal services in Frontenac. The meeting went very well, and a big thank you to MPP John Jordan for coordinating this and his ongoing support. On June 9th, I was able to attend the Frontenac Islands Council meeting on Wolfe Island. I joined Tyler Lalonde, who provided a presentation about the FMSC, and also Richard Allen and Debbie Miller, who presented on the work of the Economic Development Department. Later that day, I participated in the second Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee meeting, and they had plenty of good ideas and discussion. And next week, we are starting our first run through of business plans and project proposals as we begin the budgeting process. Perfect, thanks, Amy. So a human resources update, in terms of recruitment, we've got 204 postings as of June 9th. There's always ongoing recruitment in all areas of Fairmount. In terms of labor relations, QP 2290, which is our Fairmount union, we have an interest arbitration date. It's an evening date on November 19th. We're beginning bargaining with OPSU 462, which is our paramedic union, in July. And there's been 2 investigations that have been ongoing. And we had a third date of bargaining on June 12th with QP 109, which is the Marine Services Ferry Department. And I can say that we have a tentative deal has been reached, but will require union ratification before it comes back to council at a future council meeting. As I mentioned, the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee met again, looking at surveys, terms of reference, Q&As. We've reviewed several policies and updated some of our documents to align with equity, diversity, inclusion. We had a very successful wellness fair. It was well attended, and that took place on May 27th. That was for staff. And we had a leadership development webinar with 28 attendees. On Saturday, June 7th, Fairmount Home hosted its butterfly release to honor residents who have passed away during the last year. Residents, families, staff, and volunteers released live butterflies in the home's garden. A few updates from Frontenac Paramedics. We had a successful Paramedic Services Week barbecue, serving approximately 245 meals and giving out save and stork pins. In the image there, we see paramedics Vanessa Markland and Abigail Terry Shaver, who received their stork pin. So a big congratulations to all paramedics that received these pins during that event. Our 15 new hires for Frontenac Paramedics continue their orientation and are moving onto the road, and a posting for more paramedics is currently active for a fall hire. Measurable digital engagements for May were up 45% from the month prior and up 29% from the same period a year ago. May is typically a high traffic, high interest month, but this year's results were further enhanced by specific interest in social media posts featuring Frontenac Paramedics new recruits, Paramedic Stork and Save Awards, recruitment for a temporary deputy treasurer, and Fairmount Homes Walk for Alzheimer's. Public information sessions were held recently in both North and Central Frontenac with draft policies to follow at a future public meeting. And the State of the Waterfront survey is still available on the Engage Frontenac website. Planning staff are working closely with township staff to schedule public engagement sessions over the summer. Planning staff are also seeing an increase in applications and inquiries since the beginning of May, and more anticipated for June and July. The Wolf Island FAM Tour, or Familiarization Tour, was organized by the Wolf Island businesses with support and encouragement from our Community Development Officer, Debbie Miller. There was a walk-on tour of the new ferry, a guided walking tour of Marysville, a guided bus tour of Wolf Island, and a collaborative lunch with samples from a variety of food and beverages from the businesses on Wolf Island. There were 34 people on the tour with a primary audience of tourism staff from Kingston and surrounding area. The goal was to show these folks how the ferry works and how to explore Wolf Island so they can share all that there is to do and see with the visitors. With a steady amount of rain and cooler temperatures this spring, it has been a challenge to keep water off the KMP Trail, but for the most part, maintenance has been manageable, and this year's grading work is now complete and dust suppression has been applied. With some nice summer weather, hopefully, we see plenty of trail use and tourism throughout Frontenac. That brings me to the end of the update, and as always, I'll take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or comments for Kevin? Sorry, we have the mic on. Councilor Leonard.
Thank you. This is not really a question. I just did the extensive run on the trail. And I'll tell you, it's very, very impressive. And the grading, new grading and that they've done, they've widened it. The only thing is, I think it might pick up a little extra speed on some things, but no, it is awesome shape. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councilor Greenwood Spears?
It was a lovely report and that, but what I wondered about, with our continuing recruitment and retention that with Fairmont, have we ever done a survey and that of the staff since we've been doing the best practice service organization and changes may have been coming along? I just wonder if we can find out where they're at and whether or not things are stable and improving, et cetera, and that, just to be careful and that. And it's always nice to survey staff on occasion. Have we got a survey at any point?
Yes, we do a staff satisfaction survey once a year and then assess those results with the management team to see what we can do, you know, what kind of knowledge we can gain from those survey results.
Okay, and so do we get a copy of that? Does it get reported up to the Fairmont Management Board or is it just kept within management of Fairmont?
So this year was the first year we did it as part of our improvements from the CARF accreditation. So we can certainly do that once we've finished our analysis. I will share it with council.
And Barb had a comment as well.
I was just going to add in that preliminary results on turnover for Fairmount, their turnover has come down 10%. So that's a good sign. And the other thing is that we currently are not using agencies for PSWs, so we've upped that complement. So we're happy with that.
Sounds good.
Other comments, questions? Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have none. There are no consent reports from the Chief Administrative Officer. It will now move to Committee of Management of Fairmont Homes.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that Committee of the Whole Council adjourn and meet as Committee of Management of Fairmount Home with the Deputy Warden in the chair.
Comments, questions? All those in favor? Passed. Next item is item 2025-051, Fairmont Home replacement of a diesel fuel tank for the 250 kW diesel generator.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Warden Lichty, be it resolved that Council authorize Fairmount Home to complete the replacement of a diesel fuel tank for the 250 kilowatt diesel generator with funds from the Joint Fairmount Home Capital Replacement Reserve.
Comments, questions? Sorry, Councillor Vanderwall.
Thank you. When I read the report and they're saying that there's only 3 years approximately left of the generator, I think we need to explore replacing all of it at this time instead of just the diesel tank, and then turn out that all of a sudden we got natural gas and we're not going to go with diesel. And so I don't know if you can put it off or what you would like to do, but I think we should explore replacing the whole thing instead of just part of it.
So if I could just comment, yes, it does indicate that the generator has 2 to 3 years left of its useful life. That's specifically only based on age. A generator of that size would have anywhere from 20 to 30 years use, so it's approaching that 23-year mark, or 3,000 hours of use. The generator only has 875 hours on it. The last couple of condition assessments have also indicated that the entire assembly should be replaced, because they're only looking at the age, but not the number of hours. It only has 875 hours, or about 30% of the useful life of it actually used. And I just want to caution council to wait to replace the tank means at any moment the home would have no diesel fuel for its generator. We would not be in compliance with the ministry, and we could receive an order because the tank and the generator is mandated in legislation.
Follow-up?
Yes, if I could have a follow-up. Have we explored though, replacing the whole thing? I know you say 800 hours, but if this is anything like the fire department or anybody else we deal with, they look at the number, and I just don't want it to come back in 6 months to say, guess what? The generator has failed. And now it's gonna cost this again, and maybe diesel wasn't what we were wanting. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so just further to my other comments as well, the delay in the generator is also being driven by the redevelopment of the home. What does the redevelopment look like? If we add 32 beds, the needs for the generator is going to be significantly different. So do we want to invest $400,000 in a new generator assembly to make a decision on the home in 3 years, and we need a different generator? So I'm just trying to walk that fine line.
Thank you.
Councillor Greenwood Spears.
Thank you for the explanation. I agree, holding off when we have only 875 hours makes perfect sense to me. What caught my attention though is the concern about the American tariffs. And I thought, well, why aren't we looking at Clemmer Industry? And that Clemmer Industry is a Canadian industry. I knew about them in Waterloo, and they're now in Stratford. And that's exactly what they make, are steel containers for fuel and things of that nature. So if we're looking for a replacement in that, I don't know what the procurement process has taken into account, but I'm very familiar with that particular industry because I lived in Waterloo for many years. So rather than purchase from the US and worry about their tariffs, I want to make sure that we explore Canadian and specifically our Ontario options. Thank you.
As part of the procurement process, we would look at all our options, but I think with trying to expedite this tank due to the current need. I think at this point we would be seeking quotes, so we will definitely seek quotes from that vendor as well.
Sorry, Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, is the tank actually compromised or is this a regular maintenance to upgrade it?
So the tank is required to be ULC certified or certified in Canada. This particular tank has been in place for more than 20 years, and it is not ULC certified. So that's why at any point, someone could come to refill the tank, which we require to run the generator, and they can red tag it out. They will no longer fill it.
Follow-up question? Thank you. Councillor Warden Licky.
Right on the edge. I think it's time to replace the tank. I only have one concern. It's only more of a comment. That's a large increase in tank size. And sometimes the fuel sits in these storage units too long and becomes stale. I used to work for the region of Waterloo and we had these huge tanks. And we only tested this generator once a month. And when push came to shove and we needed them, we had operational issues because there was too much fuel that hadn't been turned over, been sitting there too long. Now, I do know this one's tested every week, I believe, so that's good. That's just a comment. So a little bit less is better than a little bit more.
CEO, did you want to comment or? We're okay.
No, you spoke to it. My answer would have been that it gets tested once a week and the fuel gets cycled.
Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Just one comment that if that tank actually failed, this is groundwater dependent out here. We would have an environmental disaster. So I don't want any great delay on it, regardless of if we ended up with two of a smaller size, if that worked. But I have no problem with the larger one, but I just hope that we can support our Canadian industries.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, all those in favor? Passed. Thank you. Next item is a return to Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vandewaal, that the Committee of Management of Fairmount Home adjourn and revert back to Committee of the Whole Council.
Comments, questions? All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. Next item is recommended reports from the Chief Administrative Officer. The first one is Report 2025-053, Frontenac Paramedics.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Leonard. Be it resolved that Council authorize the Warden and Clerk to enter into agreements with the City of Kingston as it relates to the construction of a joint paramedic and fire station to be located at 495 Taylor Kidd Boulevard, and further that staff be directed to provide a subsequent report to Council outlining detailed plans and financial implications as more information is obtained.
Comments, questions? We're pausing for a second. Councillor Vanderwall.
I was just gonna make the comment, I know the city of Kingston likes to put on their tax bill what their paramedic service costs. They want to point that out because we manage it. I hope they put their percentage of usage of the same service on that tax bill, but I doubt if they do.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. Next item is Report 2025-054, Corporate Services, Approval of Expense Reimbursement for Ongoing Transition of the Southeast Health Unit.
Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that staff be directed to continue discussions with the Southeast Public Health Unit to cover the mileage and per diem costs incurred through attendance at both the Finance and Governance Committees of the SEHU, and further that should the SEHU not cover these costs, Council authorize that these costs be covered by the county.
Comments, questions? Warden Licky.
I'd like to see that last paragraph taken off. If you're in negotiations, you don't say, well, if you don't come across, we're going to pony up the extra money. I have to admit, I don't fully understand how our expense allowance works for each counselor. In fact, I asked Kevin, our CAO, and Amy, if they would give us a updated summary of each of our each of our expense accounts where we are. I believe we should keep on paying for our representative to attend this unit or attend this organizational's meetings. But the subcommittee meetings, they should be paying for, and if they're not, then I don't think we should be contributing. So I would like to say we just continue negotiating, period. So that would be an amended motion.
So the warden is proposing an amendment. You'll need a
Right.
seconder for that. Sorry, Counselor Smith. Okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor. Just
Before that takes place, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest and step out of this. Thanks.
Madam Clerk, that's consistent. Thank you. Thank you. So questions, comments? Warden Licky.
I have one last comment. So if this is not covered, I mean, like at some point in time, Councillor Greenwood Spears is our rep on this particular board for this organization and is there with the intent that she's going to be, or that she's going to receive compensation for her expenses. It's not fair to keep her going out, that she has to make a decision. If there's not an agreement with it at a certain time, she either steps off the subcommittees or they cover it. So that's kind of up to you as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we should be covering anything beyond the end of June.
Counselor Smith.
I personally don't know what I've spent out of my $4,000. We never get sort of an accounting of that, and I think that may be part of the problem. If I knew, if I knew that I only had so many dollars, my choices of going to different conferences would be different if I knew I was on this committee that was going to cost me this kind of money. So I think part of the problem is we're not aware of our spending and we're not able to budget it. So I think we need to change that.
Counselor Vanderwall.
I think if she's on the committee or the board and we have approved that, I have no problem with that. But I do agree with Warden Lichty. I think subcommittees, you can volunteer for 50 of them if you want. And I don't think that's fair that you would ask us to pay for that. If that board does not want to cover the subcommittees, then you're right. Somebody has to make a choice.
Counselor Fowler.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the whole committee is underfunded. Is that a possibility, or do they really need extra money?
I don't know who can answer that question.
I don't think it's relevant.
Okay, so thank you for your question, but we don't have an answer. Sorry. Other comments, question? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Howdy.
Could these subcommittees
I
not
need
be
another coffee.
attended virtually, to save the mileage? So if you know your budget, you've extended past your budget, if you attend virtually, you're still taking part in the committee and helping, form decisions, but you do it virtually from home and you're saving the mileage to everybody across the board.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? So we have an amended motion on the floor.
So right now you're just voting on the amendment, which is to remove the second resolve clause.
Okay, so seeing no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the amended motion? Passed. Thank you. We'll now return to the original.
Could you read it as amended just for my sake? Thank you.
So the amended motion is that be it resolved that staff be directed to continue discussions with the Southeast Public Health Unit to cover the mileage and per diem costs incurred through attendance at both the Finance and Governance Committees of the SEHU.
And just a question then, so if they say no, then it would come back. Mr. Farrell, if they say in negotiations, no, we're not paying, does it come back to council?
We can always bring it back. We'll have these negotiations. I think I'm supposed to meet with Dr. Oglaza in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Warden Licky.
So my issue with that is, I'm on board. But at some point in time, we just can't keep going and they can't drag it out. When Councilor Greenwood Spears expects to be reimbursed for whatever she is actually doing. That's why I earlier said June 30th, we would cover whatever it is. If they don't cover it, then I think just out of, it's her moral right to cover her expenses up to that point in time. But July 1st and on, then she has to make a decision whether or not she wants to keep going on those subcommittees, and that would be her decision. If we don't cover them or they don't cover them, we don't cover them. But before that, we would do it.
So Madam Clerk, is that consistent with the motion?
No, so that's not consistent with the motion currently. Currently, the motion is that we are in negotiations with the health unit to cover these costs, but there are already costs incurred from February, March, April, and May. I'm not sure what the total expenses, we didn't include it in this, or was it in the report, but those costs have already been incurred. Mileage has been incurred, so I'm not understanding what you're saying now. Are you saying that you want to remove the second clause, but
No.
cover costs up until?
No, I was just making the point that Councilor Greenwood Spears undertook to be a member of this board based on, and the subcommittees based on the fact that she was going, or what we all thought she was going to be compensated. If she's not compensated, then I think it's within our right to cover her up to the end of June. But if there's no decision about them paying or not, anything beyond July the 1st, that would be at her expense or at SCH or whatever it is, the acronym is. That's all.
Sorry, CEO?
Yeah, so based on that, I would suggest we follow through with the negotiations, and then it can always be brought back to council.
I would support that.
So Madam Clerk, is that an amendment or direction?
And I think based on that, it would be consistent with the amended motion.
Yes, so basically it's just that staff continue discussions with the Southeast Lynn to cover these costs.
So you bring back the results of the negotiations in July.
So that's an additional clause then, an additional amendment that you want, another amendment, an additional clause that staff bring back a report. to
No, I think
council?
staff would just do that,
Just
would
do
they
that.
not?
Madam Clerk, did you want to comment? Are you okay with what we have? No. Okay, so direction is to have something back by the end of, sorry, in the month of July. Is that my understanding?
Sure, but it's not specifically in the motion, but staff will naturally bring a follow-up.
So after that discussion, just to clarify, so all those in favor of the amended motion with the direction to staff, all those in favor? Passed. Sorry, we'll catch up on where we are. So we are now looking at the report 2025-056. Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, Frontenac Municipal Services Corporation Shareholder Agreement.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Warden Lichty. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the report regarding the Frontenac Municipal Services Corporation Shareholder Agreement attached to this report as Appendix A, and further that the Warden and Clerk be authorized to sign the shareholder agreement on behalf of the county.
Comments, questions? Sorry, Councillor Greenwood Spears.
Hello, this was the first time that I saw the shareholders' numbers and that, and I actually asked about that regarding at our council meeting on Monday and that, and the CAO was present and he didn't have that information. So number one, I think we're putting the cart before the horse and doing a vote, because I think it should go through each of the townships first. And I certainly would like to have a lot more explanation as to how this was divided down, because the original agreements were signed by the previous council and that. So I was quite surprised to see the variance. And basically when you added up between the shares of South Frontenac and County and that, they overwhelm the other three townships altogether. So I'm not comfortable at all. And I really think that it should come to each of the townships first And then I'll feel much more comfortable in moving forward on this.
So Counselor, are you proposing a deferral of the?
Yes, I am. I'm proposing it's deferred until the 4 townships go through and make decisions at their level, and then we can represent our communities better.
So if we just pause for a second while the clerk writes up a deferral motion, a motion to defer?
Yes, and you just need a seconder for that.
So do we have a seconder for the motion to defer? Seeing none, the motion is not received.
Still on the table.
So,
So a very similar report has been shared with each CAO of each of the townships. When we worked through drafting the shareholder agreement and it came to the board a number of times, the FMSC board. The FMSC board gave direction to have each of the CAOs get together, the Frontenac CAOs, and we reviewed it in line by line, essentially. To answer the question about the shares, it's based on the contributions by each township. So each CAO has received a similar report, so it can go to each of the individual councils. But it's already been approved by the board, so to expedite it, we brought it to County Council first.
Warden Licky?
It's also in keeping with the county being a shareholder, a non-voting shareholder, but still a shareholder. So I don't have any issue with this.
So other comments, questions? Counselor Smith?
Just to add to that, Mike has been representing the island, so he has been involved in these discussions all the way along. And this has been in the works for a couple, 3 years now, actually maybe even 4 or 5. The lawyers have looked at this and it's been back to the board a number of times for revisions.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions on the motion? Sorry, Counselor Green Spears.
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
So we're moving to a recorded vote. Oh, sorry, Warden Licky.
I don't have any issue, thank you. I don't have any issue with the recorded vote, but this has to be voted on and approved by all 4 townships and the county. So, at some point in time, Counselor, it can go back to your township and you can decide whether or not you want to go forward with it. You have your representative, Mike Jablonski, who's been part of this, and this applies to all of us. We have to sell this or answer for it to each of our own townships. But it's been to the lawyers several times. It's come back to us. We've sent it back. It's come back and forth, and now it's in a position where we think we can have township buy-in.
Counselor Green Spears.
That's exactly why I said that we're putting the cart before the horse. I think it should go through the townships first because there isn't enough information understood by the townships and then come back to the county. Then you can come back with confidence.
So thank you for the comments. We are now going to move to a recorded vote on the motion.
Counselor Fowler, how do you vote?
In favor?
Counselor Gowdy?
In favor?
Counselor Greenwood Spears? Nay. Counselor Leonard?
In favor?
Warden Lichty?
In favor?
Deputy Warden Saunders?
In favor?
Counselor Smith?
Yes,
Counselor Vandewaal?
Yes.
So that's carried on a vote of 7-1.
Thank you. So that motion is now passed. Next item on the agenda is information reports from the Chief Administrative Officer, Report 2025-052, Corporate Services 2025 First Quarter Financial Summary and Outlook. Sorry, this is for information only. Thank you. Don't go too far, okay? Comments, questions? Seeing none, the report is received. Got that one right. The next report is 2025-055, Office of the CEO, 2024 Key Performance Indicators, KPIs, and the Balance Scorecard Update. Comments, questions? Counselor Greenwood Spears.
There was, in the paramedics piece net, it has a 75% different places that it quoted. I was wondering how they were coming up with that assessment. In other words, 75% of the time that we actually hit the target. So it's like 25% of the time is set aside as knowing that we'd never hit the target. Am I reading that piece right? On the CTAS 2, 3, 4, 5, it's specifically cited less 75%, and I just want to have an explanation on it.
So I think if I'm understanding it correctly, so the target, you're speaking to the target.
It's under the descriptor category. When you look at their chart, it has the KPI and then has the descriptor, and then under the CTAS 2, 3, 4, and 5 says less 75%.
So those targets are set by council. A report comes annually to set those targets. I will note too that those targets have been changed for 2025 and approved by council. And they've been changed based on the new MPDS dispatch system to align better with those protocols.
Okay, so I'm not thinking that the 75% refers to the 25%, which would be the Township of Frontenac Islands never being able to hit these, right?
No, it's an overall that the goal is to reach those targets based on the descriptor.
Other questions, comments? Warden Licky.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I have just one question, and that's because I simply don't understand it. That's why I'm asking. The attendance KPI, you go down, you have non-union, union, and then at the very bottom, you have union and non-union, less than 7 days absent. I don't know what that last line means. When I go through it all, like I'm following it, all of a sudden it seems to be added in together and I don't know. So I'm just asking for clarification.
CAO.
So feel free to jump in here, Barb, but the different attendance targets are based on the different collective agreements and then the non-union targets.
Okay, I got that, but just like, what does that, it says union and non-union, less than 7 days absence, the very last demographic on this chart. Who's that, or what does that refer to? Like,
Is that
which
an
over?
average of them all?
Yeah, but the one above it is non-union, less than 7 days absent, the target's 80%. Okay, and in 2024, there's 100%. And the one above that is union, target for that, or the result was 76.9. If you average those two, or is it a weighted average? But still, it would never come down to 42.9. I just don't know what that
So I
means.
think Christy might have the answer. And it's basically probably we're missing a column here that references which department that is.
Yeah, my apologies. There should be clarification on the departments there, but I believe that last one in the table is for Marine Services.
Okay,
Warden Licky, did that answer your question?
yes.
Thank you. If I could, I do have one observation. The ferry service uptime, the goal is 98, I have it right, and we're at 97. So I realize we're in a somewhat unique situation here where we have a boat that's operated by the county, partially paid for by the township, but owned by the by MTO. I'm curious as to whether or not there's an opportunity to look at other service KPIs that might give us a better indication of the ferry service itself as opposed to just uptime.
So we do review the KPIs annually, and we're always, we over time, we have changed or added or removed KPIs to align with specific goals. So there's definitely an opportunity to review those KPIs and add or change or alter them.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, I thought maybe when you make eye contact, usually it means I've well, that's sorry, fuel tank. We are now on. Apologize. Information reports. So next item is reports from the advisory committees of county council. Report of the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee.
So that's moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Fowler. that the report received from the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee be received and adopted.
Comments, questions? Counselor Vanderwall.
I support exploring this. I would hope the report comes back to say how much of our own staff time we're gonna have to put into something like this. I don't think the money that they say you'll realize will be there. And I don't know if my own personal is if this is encouraging investment and attraction. And so generally, and I've said it in the meeting, I don't support it. However, I do explore bringing back the information that we need to say whether we move forward or not.
Other comments, questions? Warden Licky.
So I was asked this question last night if I supported it or not, and I'm going, yeah, I didn't really know. I wanted to think about it, so I did think about it this morning before we came in, and I agree with Councillor Vanderwall. I think we should at least spend the money, find out what the lay of the land really is, see whether it's worthwhile or not, and then we can start making decisions. If we don't do it and don't spend the 6,000, we will never know. So I'm in favor of the motion.
Counselor Smith.
I agree. We've all talked about short-term rentals and what's out there and how could we make some money by this to help deal with some of the situations. And I think individually, our municipalities need to do a study, but we have never put the money towards it. And if the county will do it and show all of us what we have in our whole county, I think that's the way to go. And for $6,000, I think it will be money well spent.
Other comments, questions? I would have one question. So if the county passed this, does this have any binding application on the townships, or does this provide some information or direction?
So part of the investigation associated with the looking at an accommodation tax would be a discussion with the townships and understanding their capacity and understanding to do it. The whatever recommendation comes at the end of the study would have to be implemented by the townships, and each township could choose whether or not to participate at that time, because the county would not be able to implement a MAT tax itself. So we're essentially investigating because we think it would benefit the whole region, and it certainly in aggregate, it makes a lot more sense than it does for any individual township from the way the tourism landscape works. So that's part of why we're looking at it in whole.
Thank you for the update. Councillor Vanderwall.
So on what you just said, then some sort of a motion or a report would come back to each individual council.
That's correct. We would come back to both county council with recommendations, but nothing would be pursued without the support of each township council. And everything that would be pursued would be developed specific to that township. So one of the examples we used in the report is Haliburton County. So in Haliburton County, they have 4 townships that are participating in their program, and the level of taxation is different in some of the townships. So a few of them are at 4%, and some are at 2%. So those kinds of things about how the funds are used, how the funds are collected, and how and what the rates are can be customizable to each community. And so that's some of the work that we're going to do and explore as part of this feasibility.
Councillor Greenwood-Spears.
Thank you very much, Ned. We're sort of the odd group out for not having implemented the MAT tax. And that I was just very recently at a international tourism committee in that, and it was attended by many of the mayors, and that we're the only group that doesn't have MAT taxes all the way along the St. Lawrence, it seems. And the US called it occupancy tax, and they've had it for years. It is something that was lectured on at AMO as well as Roma by different mayors that basically said this is the best thing that they ever had, because the 50% that they keep, they put into a reserve that is reinvested in tourism type of things, but also there's a broad scope in that. And they use it, one of the smarter ones used it for when we need to match funds or make a contribution in order to get provincial or federal funding. So it's a reserve that they could reach back in without disturbing their budget. And it is to the benefit of everything from making public toilets to widening your roads, et cetera. And it just is the right thing to do in that. And I can't emphasize that even Gananoque has had the mat tax in place, and that Brockville, virtually everywhere along the way. So we're out of step in not having this.
So Councillor Spears, I assume your comments are in favor of the motion?
Definitely.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderwall.
Only one other comment I want to make. This is clear though, that it's going to be on your municipal staff that have to manage this all. And so maybe somebody else other than our municipality have an overabundance of staff, but I know what their workload's like. And so that would have to come back to them. And on your point about we would be ones that maybe wouldn't do it, I was at a conference and they said, who doesn't charge development charges? And there were still municipalities that didn't charge that. And the speaker and the lawyer at the time said, are you crazy? So other municipalities do other things. That doesn't mean we all have to do it, but I just want to caution, it goes back to our municipal staff.
Warden Dickey.
I agree with that. I can just see the coming in Councillor Smith mentioned short-term rentals. That is just a quagmire. We've done our best to stay out of, but we're probably going to be pushed into it eventually. And if you have an economy that's based on these, first of all, it's a tremendous amount of work on staff. You got to find out where these are. You have to somehow monitor them, check them, verify them. You know, it's easy to write a bylaw to say you can't do this and you can do this. That's one thing, but to actually implement it, and like, is it Prince Edward County? They sort of live on these things and they're in court all the time. It's just not easy, but I still want to know what the possibilities are. So I think we should spend the money. So I'm in favor of the motion. I'm done.
Mr. Allen, you've heard a lot of questions and comments. Maybe an unfair question. Do you think your report that'll come back will address some of the questions you've heard?
Should address most of those questions, yes. Taking notes.
So, seeing no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion? Passed. Thank you. And now the most exciting part of the agenda, return to council.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
All those in favor? Passed. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, let's get back. Adoption of the report of the committee of the whole council.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Smith, that the report of the committee of the whole council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Do we have any notices? Motions of which have been given? No. Anyone wish to give a notice of motion? Seeing none. Communications? Council consented the following communications of interest to council listed below be received and filed.
Sorry, Warden. There's an item in here talking about strong mayor powers. And I don't know whether or not this council has taken a position on that.
So strong mayor's powers are just at the lower tier. They don't affect an upper tier. So at this point, council, we have not taken a position.
So this report is just for information. There's no action we can take on. Thank you.
Yes, these are the communications that go out in your weekly distribution package.
Thank you.
And on that, so 3 of the townships here have it because of the size of our of our councils. It's not really a gift. The mayor becomes a target. Because you can object to certain motions that are passed. So you're gonna please 50% of your population and 50% are gonna be opposed. And if you vote the other way, then that's just the other way around. Budget time, who wants to work through a budget that takes staff weeks or months to put together? And it becomes your budget, and you have to present it. Now, everybody's going to come to you and is going to want all their pet projects on there. So you now have to decide, do you want to put them in the budget or don't you? There's a couple small benefits to it, but generally overall, it isn't necessarily the gift people think it is. So, and everybody's working through it. I don't know about Central and Southwood, but we're certainly working through it, and it's a lot of questions. Is there any other comments on this? Pardon?
Moved by Counselor Vandewaal, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaws A through D that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws A through D be read a first and second time.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Third reading?
Moved by Counselor Vandewaal, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Resolved that bylaws A through D be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Final comments? In favor? Carried.
Moved by Counselor Leonard, seconded by Deputy Warden Saunders, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:21 a.m.
Just one comment. I'm giving notice. I will not be here at the next council meeting.
Notice received.
I won't be here for 2 months then.
Yeah. Okay, is there any comments about adjournment? Just to catch up, in favor? Carried, meeting's adjourned.
The administration can